All right, we should be live.
Yo, yo, what is up, everybody? If we are live, welcome to the show. As always, we just have to refresh our Facebook feed just to make sure that we are live before we start launching into our awesome content. And I can see that we are. So, Merry Christmas, everybody. It is the 28th of December today in Australia, Tuesday, the 28th, which means I'm pretty sure that right now it is Monday, the 27th. So, we've just finished Christmas. I hope you all had a wonderful time. If we haven't met, my name is Rad Burmeister. I'm one of the co-owners and co-founders of Unity Gym and the Unify Movement System. Below me is the effervescent Richard Lellis, one of our partners and also co-founders and co-creators. How are you, Richie?
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. Merry Christmas to everybody, and let's get stuck into it.
Yeah. Let's get into it. Look, we've got a couple of questions today that are both around injuries, and a lot of people ask us questions about injuries. It is really common thing. So the first thing we're going to answer is a question about Jefferson curls based on a YouTube video that we just posted on how to do a Jefferson curl, which is loaded forward flexion. Can cause issues with the spine for those people that have them. And the second question that we're going to answer is in our Facebook group, UMS Movement Mastermind, about a meniscus tear, dealing with a meniscus tear. So we will kick off with this question about the Jefferson curl. And it's by, uh, sorry, I just need to find it. Okay, here we go. It's by Yojax saying, nice vid. Your editing just keeps getting better and better. Thank you very much. I keep coming back to Jefferson curls, but I must admit, I sometimes get a backache, herniated disc like pain in my lumbar spine the day after doing them. And that's even with zero weight. I'm pretty confident my form is fine and can always follow the cues you discuss in this video. Is there any chance that some people are predisposed to disc injury, just aren't meant to do loaded spine flexion? So, the first thing that I'll say to the answer of this question is I'd really love you to come over to the UMS Movement Mastermind Facebook group and post a video because we always have to look at technique first. And even though somebody can say, I think my technique is fine, that certainly doesn't mean it is fine. So, I'd really recommend that. Second part is what we've said here. My response is I said, how many times a week do you do Jeffersons? And Yojax responded saying, I'm not using them in my training, but when I have done so in the past, twice a week, maybe three times at most, although the minute I notice a slight twinge in my lower back, I stop doing them right away. So, look, the first thing that I want to say is that um, the language that people use to describe discomfort or pain is not necessarily reflective on what is actually going on. Um, wouldn't you agree with that, Richie? Like often
Yep.
when people say, "Oh, I'm feeling this," like the first thing we have to try to discover is, what's really happening. Because when you say a discomfort the day after doing Jefferson curls, that doesn't alarm me at all. But when you'd say a twinge in my back as I'm doing them, that definitely makes me want to ask more. Wouldn't you agree with that, Richie?
Yeah, pain is so tricky to understand, and we've done many episodes on the Move Mastermind and YouTube explaining like what pain means and whether you should be listening to these pain signals or it's something that you should be not completely discarding what you're feeling, but also understanding that sometimes when you get a little bit of pain, it doesn't mean you're causing any further injury to your body. It is very tricky to understand, and I think it's important that everybody knows that it's not a black or white answer. There's a bit of gray in there, like most things. Um, yeah, so that's my answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, like discomfort the day after doing Jefferson curls, I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with that. I think a lot of people really wrap their spines in cotton wool, and it's probably one of the biggest problems that people have with their training is this feeling that training shouldn't cause discomfort, because using that word discomfort, if I feel uncomfortable, feeling like I feel a little bit of soreness, oh my God, you should see what the discomfort that I go through in a week from training. Like when I get to the end of my week of training, discomfort doesn't come close to describing what I feel. I'm in I'm in pain, and not like an injury pain, but like the DOMS, the delayed onset of muscle soreness that I feel in the weaker areas of my body is like, so sometimes it's so high that I almost feel like I'm sitting on the verge of taking Panadol for it. And that's just training. That's not. I certainly do not train through pain. We don't coach people to push harder, go harder, but it's the result of working through your weak links. And when you're doing Jefferson curls loaded forward flexion, often that lower back is a real weak link in that area. And so the next day, what you feel is DOMS. It's the delayed onset of
Mm.
muscle soreness. It's those those lumbar erectors um,
Yep.
that are just working, that have just been smashed.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like
really
this.
important to understand like the difference between like spinal pain, where it's like actually the disc that's causing you pain, or whether it's just the muscles that surround the spine that chronically are being worked just by sometimes standing up and holding your posture straight. That can be also um, experiencing that discomfort. So there is a
Mhm.
big difference. One is something that just is simply weak and is getting a little bit overworked, and the other potentially could be a structural change that is going to cause degeneration over time. And there is a big difference. And
Mhm.
a lot of people think that it's the spinal one that is the case. That's what they're feeling. But in most cases, it can be just spinal muscles,
Mhm.
just
Yep.
like any muscle. Like when once you train them, they get stronger, they get more resilient, and then you find that that pain that you were suffering once upon a time tends to go.
Yep. Absolutely. And what we got to remember is, so the next part to my answer is, training 2 or 3 times a week for the Jefferson curl. We don't recommend that. We only do the Jefferson curl once a week. And the reason why is it's such a high demand on the body that requires recovery. And remember that the growth or the adaptation that we're searching for when we train occurs during recovery. It doesn't occur during training. The training is the stimulus that sends the signals for the adaptation to occur during recovery. So if you're not recovering enough and you're just hammering the body with the stimulus, you can absolutely mismanage load and cause an injury to yourself. And the Jefferson curl is one of those movements that we've found you really need to be careful with the dosage. The devil is not in the movement, the devil's in the dosage. The middle splits is another one that we're really aware of. Now, that said, like I do spine mobility daily. I do some type of spine mobility, but I wouldn't like the Jefferson curl is more of a strength mobility movement because you're loading it up, you're grabbing weight and you're developing strength through range, which is something that you really need to be careful about with the dosage. Now, the last thing to the question is, do you think that there's some people that are genetically dispositioned to having spine injuries and things like that? Uh, Absolutely. But take that with a grain of salt because I'm not a physiotherapist or a doctor or a surgeon or anything. That's my opinion. But you're asking, are there people that would be genetically dispositioned to this? Well, yeah, if you've got a genetic defect in your spine, then that would make you predispositioned to having issues. There are people that um, have birth defects and things like that. Um, it's a small amount of people, though. It's what we find more often than not is when people go down that road of, oh, is it my genetics? It rarely is. It's it's more a mismanagement of load.
I think, yeah, I mean, regardless of whether you're one of those people or not, like it's about how you're doing the exercise, how much you're loading the exercise. Anything can be dangerous if you load it up enough. Even if you had a perfectly robust spine capable of doing the Jefferson curls all day, if you just aggressively load it before you're ready for it, then yeah, you're going to hurt yourself. So it totally matters in what weight you're using and what your technique is like, and yeah, and how rapidly you're increasing that load. Um, if you're somebody that's listening that has never done it before in your life and you've barely trained and exercised in the gym or done any sort of back work, posterior chain work, then yeah, you want to start very, very light. But if you're somebody, that has had a lifelong time of being an athlete and you're quite resilient, strong, you've been lifting weights for years, deadlifting, then you could potentially load it more. But whoever you are, you have to start at the right point and then progressively load it. And most people don't realize how light they have to start. So I like to, whenever I'm teaching the Jefferson curls, start out lighter than what you'd think you should be lifting. And then
Yeah,
over weeks, gradually take it up kilo by
yep,
kilo, pound for pound. And this is not like a fast, short track of getting like super flexible spine, super strong spine. You want to be doing this movement for years. So take it
yep,
slowly.
yep.
Your body
Yeah,
used to it.
and I mean, look, there are people out there that Jefferson curl their own body weight and things like that. So
Yeah.
when I say what I'm about to say, if you go to, oh well, I saw this guy doing that. Well, yeah, sure. There's also people out there that clean and jerk double their body weight, or there's people out there that deadlift, you know, 3 or 4 times their body weight. I mean, there's extreme examples of the strongest and most capable athletes in the world everywhere. But then there's the rest of us.
Yeah.
And for me, I weigh anywhere between, on average, 85 to 88 kilos. I think that's about 190 pounds. And I find that when I go above 25 kilograms with a Jefferson curl, that's about 55, 60 pounds, something like that, that I have to be careful. It's not that it causes me injury or anything, but those DOMs, that recovery that's required when I go that heavy is real, man. And you just got to be aware of that. So if you think about my training age, how long I've been training for, how consistent I am with my training, that I've been doing Jefferson curls for about 6 years now, and I'm finding that 25 kilos is a pretty decent higher end weight for me, and unless I really want to push it. Think about, where are you then? How much are you lifting? How long have you been doing it for? Maybe you have gone too hard. And I'll give you a really nice story of one of our members at Unity Gym, Nick, who, when he came to us, I'll never forget this. When I showed him a Jefferson curl in class for the first time, he just looked at me and went, "Oh man, I can't do that." And I said, "Why not?" And he goes, "Oh, I've got herniated discs and I just can't do it." And I said, "Okay, cool, man. We'll just go 4 kilos, a 4 kilo kettlebell." And he's a decent sized guy. He was fit and strong. And he looked at me and he went, "Man, I really can't do it. It's that." And I said, "Wow, is it that bad?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "All right, cool. What we're going to do is, with absolutely no weight, we're going to go through the movement." And I showed him the movement, and he even got halfway down and went, "Oh, I'm even a bit scared of that." And I said, "That's cool, man. Just work the range of motion that doesn't scare you. And what will happen is, over time, we'll increase the range of motion. Once the range of motion gets to a level that where we can see some improvement, then we're going to add weight, and we're going to literally go 1 kilo at a time, or 2.2 pounds at a time. We're going to start with 1 kilo or 2.2 pounds, same weight, and then we're going to go up by 1 kilo at a time." And that was all the instruction I gave him, beyond when I coach him every day and I just look at everything that he was doing in the class. But I don't remember really coaching him much more on how to deal with his herniated disc than that, which was basically a crash course on managing load. And then, about 8 or 9 months later, I saw him loading up 135 kilos on a barbell for a deadlift, which is about, I think it's about almost 290 pounds, something like that. Um, and I watched him deadlift that for 5 reps with really good technique, and he looked really strong and confident. And I said to him, Nick, that was only about 9 months ago where you were in this state that I just described with the Jefferson curl. And he laughed and said, yeah. And I said, wow, that's incredible, isn't it? And he said, yeah. And that's an example of what can happen to people that have these really compromised spines if you just take this approach of progressive overload. You know, it's a really powerful tool if you use it properly.
Yeah, and I mean, I've got a few stories as well over the years of doing Jefferson curls. Um, you know, if anybody's out there that's sort of looked into a bit of the research on, why we don't load the spine in a flex position, generally the consensus is like if people have a disc herniation, disc bulge, then spine flexion tends to be what can really set it off. Same with compressive load. So you'd naturally think, oh, getting them to do a Jefferson curl is like a big no-no. But, again, if the dosage is right, if the weight is light enough and they do it in a slow, progressive manner, then they can start building resilience in that spine and actually end up finding that spinal flexion might help relieve some of the symptoms, which I found with some people. I remember, I can't remember who it was, their name, but they had disc bulges. They had like this issue where their back would get sore from going to flexion. But after a couple of weeks of doing it and just with barely any weight at all, just going through the motion slowly with the right technique, they actually said that it made their spine feel better. Like their daily level of pain got better. So
Yep.
it completely contradicts to what most of people would think would happen with somebody that has a disc bulge or disc herniation, that it increases pain. It's not the case, not
Yep.
always, not 100%.
Yep.
Can actually make them feel better, which is what we found. So
Absolutely.
you gotta take what you know about the spine, quotations, with a grain of salt. What you've learned from experts. Sometimes you got the opposite case. And that's why I think it's important that people realize that spine flexion isn't bad loaded. It's just, it's just the dosage. You get a lot of exercises that are vilified and made to be like the don't do exercise because it'll cause this to the body. And then, it's not like that. There's a lot of gray when it comes to whether it can cause you harm or not. Like,
Yep.
not always black or white.
Absolutely. Yep. Anyway, Tribe, thanks so much for tuning in. We were going to go into answering a question from our UMS Movement Mastermind Facebook group, which is what exercises can you do when you have a meniscus tear? But we're out of time and we're in fact way over time. So we will answer that tomorrow. So tune in tomorrow. And if you're watching on YouTube, just remember that the UMS Movement Mastermind is where we provide coaching for our free programs. And if you didn't know, you can get some of our most popular programs for free: the Flexibility Masterclass, the 20-minute flexibility routine, the ultimate warm-up routine, and the Pull Up Masterclass. You just need to click the link on our banner on YouTube, or just go to unitygym.com and click on the free training there. And they're totally free. You don't have to put any credit card details in or anything like that. You just click them and download get access to the programs. So thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. And we will see you guys here tomorrow.
You guys.